I'll be covering a lot of material, and there's no way I could cover all there is to cover about entrepreneurship. But I want to start by saying, in the 1970s, the world saw a new innovation called the computer. Now, that computer was invented decades prior to that, but it didn't reach us until the mid-70s and early 80s. Entrepreneurship is in the same kind of cycle right now. We've been studying, we've been working, public policymakers have been encouraging entrepreneurship for decades. And that started in the 70s. And we are starting to see the effects and the benefits of this tsunami we're going to call entrepreneurship. So I'm here today to talk to you about what's going on, what's the cutting edge, what's going on in the world of entrepreneurship today that we can see unfold in the next few years and decades. And for those of you graduating from school in the next decade, I can guarantee you that entrepreneurship will be a primary element in your life. So with that, I'd like to start out by boasting a little bit. These are quotes from some friends of mine. Think about these questions. How do individuals and organizations prosper in this ever-changing world we're in now, this threatening world? And the answer is we learn to think and act in an entrepreneurial way. The students in our classrooms today are experiencing the speed, experimental change, revolutionary processes, and continuous adaptation, which for them is going to bring about unprecedented opportunity. It's a time requiring passion, a new wave of economic development. Entrepreneurship innovation is the primary catalyst, not only in Louisiana, not only in the US, but around the world. Leaders around the world are asking the question, how can we get our people to be more entrepreneurial? How can we develop in our own communities an entrepreneurial ecosystem? The key words here, entrepreneurial mindset. It's the way we think. Overcoming obstacles, developing our own knowledge, skills, and abilities. Entrepreneurial age, entrepreneurial mindset. That's sort of the theme of today. Because 40 years ago, there were only a handful of universities that dealt in entrepreneurship. Over 3,000 now. Universities are at the heart of entrepreneurship, at the heart of economic development, at the heart of the future of our young people and our graduates. Throughout my talk today, I'll be talking about what it was like yesterday, what it's like today, and I would hope you could envision a little bit of what it's going to be like tomorrow. Times are changing, and I want you to think about this slide here because the world as we know it is about to change like we've never seen, as this Christmas season, virtual reality will be a key selling device. And over the next couple of years, it will become part of our lives. It will be, in a big way, how we teach our classes. It will be, in a big way, how we train our employees. The old way, we would take graduates and we would say, the world of business is very linear. You're going to learn a job. You're going to do that job for a long time. We will tell you how to think. If you want to work into an executive level, the word POSCORP, that's where we do planning, we do organizing, We do staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. That's what we do. And that doesn't work anymore. We found that out a few decades ago when Henry Mintzberg went around and actually studied what we do in our organization. So the old way doesn't work. We are in a transition period now, and we're sort of stuck in the middle because some of us are still stuck in the old ways, and some of us are adopting the technology and the knowledge of tomorrow. We're in a place now where we're in a place of managing or manageable change. And I'll give you a little prelude of what is to come in the presentation. One of the key jobs of tomorrow is cognition manager. With big data, with instant access, with overwhelm, with robotics, with 24/7 connectivity, the human mind is reaching its capacity on cognitive bandwidth. The new millennial generation, your generation, the students we have in our classroom today, are the best equipped multitaskers we've ever seen. And as we test them, they are reaching their cognitive limits. We will need to manage how we focus, manage our work day, manage our lives. These transition periods, the first transition period, I want to make us really clear that the computer hit us hard and the internet hit us hard and changed our world. What's already proven in the labs and that hasn't hit us yet as consumers is the nano revolution, the biotech revolution, and big data. So those students who are graduating today, their life will be dominated by biotech, nanotech, big data. The jobs of tomorrow, a robotic world. I always use this slide because I want us to think this way. Wayne Gretzky, the ice hockey player, known as the Great One, often is asked, what made you so good? And he always says the same answer. While other hockey players skated after the puck, I always skated where the puck was going to be. And I suggest for those graduating now, think about where the market's going to be, where the jobs are going to be, where your careers are going to be. And my argument today is entrepreneurship is at the heart of that destination. I have 3 books that I recommend, and I will argue that, and I will share with you that much of what I'm telling you today comes out of this book and this book. So 3 very dear colleagues and very dear friends of mine, Heidi Neck, Patty Green, and Candy Brush, out of Babson College, recognized undeniably as the #1 entrepreneurship university on the earth. They wrote a great book on teaching entrepreneurship, and I wish I had more time to tell you about it, but I will share part of that with you. The colleagues Don Kradko, Mike Morris, and Jeff Cornwall wrote a great book on the Entrepreneurial University and entrepreneurship education. If you're looking for more of what I'm sharing with you today, if you want to do some reading on your own, both of those books are fabulous, as well as the center book on entrepreneurship in universities. Very quickly, we're going to cover some basics about what's going on in entrepreneurship today. I want to share a few things so that building a little context to make sure you and I are on the same page. Talk about expertise. How do you build expertise in the area of entrepreneurship? A few insights about entrepreneurship, and then talk about entrepreneurship education. Before we can start, let's at least agree on some definition for the entrepreneur. And I'm going to call the entrepreneur the undertaker. in a good way, meaning that they undertake projects, they undertake tasks that are very difficult. The word stems from the French word to take under. And it's been used in multiple contexts, and now we use it in the business context. So to take under, to take on a big job, the big responsibility, put upon your shoulders the ultimate responsibility. That's the entrepreneur. Ambitious projects, big, ultimate responsibility. Your job to pull together the people and the resources. Your job to innovate, to stay up with the market. Your job to create this new infant organization, the business that you create. And doing so, create both value and wealth. Entrepreneurship. I want to share with you that I want you to imagine for a moment that you're driving down the road in a car and the windows are blacked out. I will take the black off the back window and give you the rearview mirror, but you can only drive forward by looking through the rearview mirror. I would argue that most of you could do that as long as the car were not moving very quickly. Half a mile an hour, 3 miles an hour. That's the way we used to teach. We would sit you in a classroom and tell you what used to be. We would tell you how to go forward in your career by telling you what used to be. And that worked okay in the 50s, and the 60s, and even in the 70s, when the world didn't move very fast. But in the 70s, things started to change. The argument here is in the future, we need to take the front windshield out so that you can envision the future, thinking about the future as the world starts to change more and more and more. And ladies and gentlemen, we are in a period of accelerated change, which means we're changing a lot now. Next year, we're going to change even more. 10 years from now, we will change a whole lot more year by year. I'm going to run through some slides very quickly just to tell you what's going on. We're not aware of everything. There's Mark. Speaking about entrepreneurship, saying, President Obama, I'm not happy. I need government's help, and if you're not going to help me, at least get out of my way. Correlation between entrepreneurial activity and economic growth. Huge. Entrepreneurial activity leads to economic activity. Kings and presidents and chancellors around the world are saying, please tell me how I can get my people to be more entrepreneurial. In an economic downturn, people turn to entrepreneurship. In many countries, we refer to this as necessity entrepreneurship. I don't have a job. I've got a family to feed. What do I do? How do I survive? Necessity entrepreneurship. Many boomers supplement their income and their careers with side jobs, side entrepreneurial venture. We have a lot of hot new topics in entrepreneurship. Healthcare entrepreneurship is one of them, and one of them that can impact the Shreveport-Bossier area tremendously. Think about the physicians, the dentists, the other healthcare professionals that we graduate from our classrooms and say, go out in the world and make a living, and they don't have a job, but they start their own practice. With no education in how to build an entrepreneurial practice in a rapidly changing healthcare world. Clearly it's popular. You've seen it. Magazines popping up. It's popular. Even in our own region, we have a lot of things going on. A lot of things going on. A lot of things in higher education. a lot of resources for our professors to use in the classroom for our students. A lot. Government support, the White House, Startup America. Obama's given many, many, many talks about this, and I would suspect our new president's going to do the same. In our own backyard, in our own backyard, and many of us aren't aware that these events are happening. Around the world, Berlin, Malaysia, Taiwan, Puerto Rico, Korea, around the world. It is an entrepreneurship tsunami. Again, around the world, with leaders here in the U.S. helping us, like the Kauffman Foundation over there in Kansas City, dedicated to supporting entrepreneurship. The Coleman Foundation, our own organizations, the United States Association for Small Business and Entrepreneurship, around since 1955, International Council for Small Business, all with resources that can help you, that can help us. Two leaders in the world stand out, Babson College that I mentioned before, clearly the leader in the world of entrepreneurship education, and in the world of entrepreneurship research, Indiana University. By the way, both universities made a decision not long ago to become #1 in the world, setting themselves on that path, and have done so. So I turn to these two institutions for much, much of what I'm sharing with you today. Entrepreneurship topics that are hot: legal entrepreneurship, women minority entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship. I'm only throwing all this up here to say that there's a lot of buzz out there. There's a lot of activity that many of us are unaware is going on. Healthcare. Healthcare. I share this slide just to say that back in 2002, there were 12 institutions that actually had a PhD program in entrepreneurship. Back in 1980, there were none. That's how quickly the world's changing. That's how quickly professors are being provided to the marketplace to fill your classrooms to teach about entrepreneurship. We're now at 55. Those schools and those schools. Schools that you can actually take a major in entrepreneurship. Over 200. I want to pause for a moment. Are there any burning questions from the audience? Transition. Why entrepreneurship? Because we live in a world where we need to be self-sustaining. Each of us individually. We need to develop a career where we get a paycheck, where we get income, and the jobs of the future are changing. The jobs of tomorrow are built much more around entrepreneurship. Many of the leaders in the world of futuristic thinking sit around in their think tanks and discuss what's the world of tomorrow going to be like for the millennial. And for that next generation, Generation Z, which is about to appear in our classroom. Well, this world of rapid change, the cognitive bandwidth capacity of a boomer is going to struggle with that kind of change. They've grown up their entire lives not understanding that kind of change. Millennials are the first generation capable of handling the order of magnitude of change that's coming. And we hope that the Generation Z is there too, but they ask the question, what is their job going to be like? Because the parents of a boomer, a veteran, they trained a certain way. They developed a single skill. They took on a job. They had it for 60 years. They were given a gold watch for being so loyal, and they retired. The boomers came along and had a few jobs and retired. Millennials, you are not going to have a few jobs. You're going to have tens and 20s of jobs, 20, 30, 40, 60 different jobs. But more importantly, you're going to have multiple careers. You're going to have to retool yourselves. And that's why the experts argue you need entrepreneurial skills to think entrepreneurially, develop an entrepreneurial mindset. That's why I put this slide up here. You know, you show up in a classroom, you sit down, you listen to the instructor, you read the book, you fill out the homework assignment, you take the quiz. How do you know that you actually know something? How does any of us know if we really know something? So one of the main themes on campus in today's world is metacognition, critical thinking and metacognition. Can you think yourself through these things? Well, I like using unconscious incompetence to explain one of the core attributes of entrepreneurship. So you actually know something is in those two cells. You don't actually know something in those two cells. You're aware that you know or don't know across there, and you're unaware down here. So you actually know that you know something. You don't know that you know it. You know that you don't know. You don't know that you don't know. So we're going to put conscious and unconscious labels on those. And the point I'm trying to make with this most people, to some degree, including our students, including many of our professors, including most humanoids, fall into this, we don't know what we don't know. There's been many studies on this, and a couple of our colleagues have actually done some tests and shown that when people don't know, for example, I know what entrepreneurship is, starting a business. I read a little bit about entrepreneurship. In their brain, they know virtually nothing. They don't know what they don't know. And what we find is then they think they actually know, and so we have a problem of overconfidence. The reason I bring it up in entrepreneurship is because entrepreneurship is about learning and developing and growing. When someone says, I want to start my own company, you need to know this much, and you know this much. You believe in your heart that you know enough to make it successful. So part of entrepreneurship education is changing the mindset of students so they understand what they don't know. Because only when the student arrives with an empty cup can we fill it with what's necessary for them to be successful. Unconscious incompetence. I want to get rid of these. So, there's another issue going on with humanoids. And Herb Simon, who died a few years ago, the father of artificial intelligence, a tremendous guru in the field of business. He studied for years and decades this concept of expertise. And I raise this because what's it going to take for you to be successful in your career or for you to be successful as an entrepreneur? And he says that the way the mind works is we gather knowledge and then we connect the dots through a sense-making mechanism. We reinforce it in such a way that the mind remembers it as a chunk of knowledge that has more value than the sum of all the knowledge you chunk together. So you have a chunk of knowledge. He actually measured it, and if you get to 50,000 chunks, you're an expert. And why is that important? Well, it's important because at that level, you operate in an intuitive way. The world seems to flow. You make good decisions. So your goal as a student or as an entrepreneur, if you understood unconscious incompetence, that you really didn't know everything, you could approach the world, you could approach your studies as, I'm developing my skills. I'm just developing my knowledge. And every day is another step in the journey of me learning and me developing. And if we take that attitude, the entrepreneurial mindset, we don't worry so much about failure. We don't worry because failure equals learning. So we're trying to learn. Here's the problem. Most people, when they get some requisite knowledge level, roughly 3,000 to 5,000 chunks of knowledge, 3,000 to 5,000, when expert is 50,000, they go in, they do their job, they go home, they come back the next day, do their job, they go home, and they do what humans do really well, is we fall into the world of habituation, of routines, of repeating ourselves, of cognitive laziness. We do it again and again and again. So after 20 years of serving on your job, you boast to someone, I've got 20 years experience, when in fact you really don't. It took you 1 year to acquire those 5,000 chunks, and then you've been living for 20 years on those 5,000 chunks. So you've got 1 year of experience. If we could teach entrepreneurs that this is what happens with people, and all you have to do in baby steps is move forward, acquiring more chunks, you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. How do we know what we know? I've been part of a massive data collection process, a project that cost many, many millions of dollars, supported by the National Science Foundation, where we went out and we followed entrepreneurs. We studied them in what's called a panel study. So we would study them 4 years. We would go ask them questions. We'd send them surveys 1 year. We do it 4 years in a row and collect all this data. So we're not waiting and saying, hey, Bill Gates, what was it like 20 years ago when you started? And accepting that as truth, we actually followed them. And as a result, we found out all kinds of things about how entrepreneurs think. And one of the things that I want to share with you is that entrepreneurs think differently than non-entrepreneurs. And we can actually teach people that mindset. A brilliant scholar, her name is Saraswati. She studied under Herb Simon. She studied how entrepreneurs think. And she developed a new theory that is sweeping the world of entrepreneurship right now. Sweeping the world of entrepreneurship. And it's called, it's got a weird name, it's called effectuation. And effectuation just means the way you think is you look at yourself in a given situation as a specific mean, and there's all kinds of different paths you could take. You're going to pick one. One of many. It's that simple. So it's called a mean. I'm the mean. There's all kinds of ends, mean ends, because traditional business schools, traditional universities, the Harvards and the Stanfords, the Chicagos, the MITs of the world, the way they teach is the opposite. They teach means end, the opposite. Of all these options, pick one and choose one target. It's just an opposite way of thinking. And the best way to illustrate that is in the world of entrepreneurship, the way universities have taught for decades and decades and decades, starting with Harvard in 1940s and 50s, is I'm a bank financer, a financier, and you want to start a business. I'm going to ask you for a business plan. Well, what is a business plan? It is a precise roadmap for everything you're going to do into the future. So we're going to write it all down, how you're going to acquire the customer, the cost of acquisition, the cost of retention. We're going to tell you how you're going to market it, the results, the operations, the human capital. We're going to put everything into that plan. And if you give us that plan, that big, thick plan, and we study it and we give you the big check, our job's easy, because then all we have to do is check every few months to see that you did exactly what you said you'd do. The problem is that's not how entrepreneurs think. It's not how Zuckerberg thinks. It's not how Zappos thinks. It's not how Microsoft thinks. It's not how any entrepreneur thinks. The way an entrepreneur thinks is, I'm going to start along this path and give it everything I've got until Tuesday when I have new information, and then I'm going to change and go this direction until Thursday morning when I'm going to change and go this direction. Can you imagine how that would drive a banker crazy? So the bankers of the world, the professors, the Harvard professors of the world, said, you can't do that. We have a contract, you have to do this. And the entrepreneur says, no, you don't understand the market. There's a better opportunity over here. Or that window corridor or that opportunity corridor is drying up. And the financier who has this mindset that's opposite yours says, fine, we will not fund you. So all of these points when they change their mind are called pivot points. Entrepreneurs are very good at adapting to the market, recognizing opportunities, and pivoting. But it doesn't fit the mindset of most professors or most bankers. Who it does fit are venture capitalists. People who put their own money up. And so venture capitalists for decades have realized this and said, we are going to support you. We're not going to act like a government and put a lot of restrictions on you. We're going to bet on you. You tell us when you're going to pivot. Let us know so we can share with the excitement. And if you fail, that's okay, because I have a portfolio of you, and I know that you're learning. I'll bet on you again. Your next job will be better because you'll have more knowledge, skills, and abilities. You will have developed a mindset. Did any of that make sense? You guys with me? So the example that Saraswati likes to use is the banker is going to put on a big dinner for all of the important people in Shreveport tonight. So what does the banker do? Say, well, this is the music we're going to play. The music's going to start at 6:41 with this song. These are going to be the hors d'oeuvres. They're going to be set out 8 per plate. The plates are going to be over there against that wall. Does that make sense? And then just follow the plan. The entrepreneur says, we're going to put on a great party tonight. And it's going to start at 7 o'clock. And we're going to have crawfish and steak. But then the entrepreneur gets to the cupboard and says, well, the crawfish don't look so good, so I'm going to change my mind. And we're not going to start at 6 because I heard some people are going to show up early, so we're going to start at 5. Do you see how the entrepreneur is an improviser? They adjust, they adapt. That's the mindset. That's the entrepreneurial mindset. 2 of our colleagues, Rita McGrath and Ian McMillan, out of the Wharton School of Business, wrote several papers and a couple of books about this where they call those real options. Entrepreneurs are really good at keeping their options open. So when they realize there's a better opportunity, when you realize you have a better job opportunity, you can pursue it. Because you have the entrepreneurial mindset where your antennae are always up looking for a better opportunity, as opposed to locking yourself into a job or a contract and getting into the robotic, habitual repetition that humans are in their DNA hardwired to do. You're smart. If you know you're hardwired to do that, it's very easy to step out of that and say, I'm going to think like an entrepreneur. It's easy to do, it's easy to teach. I don't have a watch. How are we doing on time? Come on. 35. So, 45?
11:45.
Woo!
Quarter 12.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about, I've already shared with you entrepreneurship is about learning, about what Herb Simon would say, excellence, expertise. Wouldn't you love to live a life where you were an expert and wanted by everyone, begged by everyone to work for them, begged by everyone to be a customer, and your life was flowing so easily it was effortless because you knew enough that you were expert. You solve problems effortlessly. You fall into what we call the flow. Wouldn't that be great? We can teach that. We can teach people to what Dan Pink in his book Drive and A Whole New Mind talk about the world of tomorrow and how robotics and big data and computers are changing your jobs of the future, where we don't need you to write legal prose and contracts anymore. We don't need that. We don't need you to write code. We have robots that do that. We don't need rational computers. What we do need are very creative and innovative critical thinkers. We want critical thinkers. If I have a critical thinker apply for a job, I may not need them this week, but 2 weeks from now, they're going to solve a problem for me. And they're going to grow and develop and solve more problems for me. We can teach in our classrooms improvisation, effectuation. We can teach people skills. And I could show you more slides on how you teach emotional intelligence, social intelligence, cultural intelligence. How we make you more valuable to the marketplace. Babson College is teaching all of that right now. They're breaking the mold on how you teach entrepreneurship. Other schools are starting to adapt a little bit. Right now in 2017, we are stuck in the middle, with one school doing a great job, a few schools trying to copy, trying and not doing a bad job, a whole bunch of schools doing it very poorly, but asking the question, how do we transition forward? We have regions around the world that are well known for their entrepreneurial activity, their entrepreneurial expertise. Silicon Valley, Austin, the Research Triangle, Route 128. We have examples around the world of entrepreneurial ecosystems that are thriving, because we know that for every ecosystem tech job, there are 5 other jobs that go into the local economy. We know these things. We know how to build ecosystems. There's no reason why Shreveport-Bossier cannot be another entrepreneurial ecosystem. We know the formula. We need the resolve and fortitude to make it such. There are university options now for entrepreneurship, and it's possible that entrepreneurship will be an option at LSUS in the future. With that, there's so much more I can share. I'm happy to answer questions. Anybody? Yes?
Were you saying that the entrepreneurship is ready for change?
A little louder.
Well, were you saying that the entrepreneurship is ready and prepared for the change?
Yes, well, so the question is entrepreneurship ready for the change? The change has already occurred. We just haven't seen it yet, so there's no stopping it. It's already happened. So over the next 18 to 24 months, you're going to see radical change. And the question is, for the Shreveport-Bossier region, when are we going to jump on the bandwagon as an economic viable region? When are we going to start doing more for our students, more for our local constituencies, more for our businesses? But the change is already happening. Any other questions? Thanks so much, everybody.